Hey guys, my name is Yasmina and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to share with you my favorite writing craft books and the writing craft books that I think you should read. Now, there's quite a few of them, I'm not gonna lie, so I don't think you need to read all of them necessarily, but just pick and choose whichever you feel like reading depending on your situation and where you are with your writing. But I have read a lot of writing craft books, and these are the ones that are my favorite out of everything that I read and the ones I would recommend the most. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, the very first book that I think you need to read is Save the Cat Writes a Novel. Now, this is a rewrite of the original Save the Cat book. This was based on screenwriting, but for the longest time, all the novelists used this to write their books as well. And then Jessica Brody decided to rewrite it and make it specific for novel writing. But it's essentially the same concept, the same structure that you need to write a successful novel. These two books focus on the 3-act structure and the story beat method, which are personally what I use to write my novels, and I think they offer the best in terms of outlining and structuring your novel the correct way, having some freedom in your drafting process, but at the same time having a very organized and structured novel. If you were to just read one book out of all the books that I'm going to talk about today, I would say this should be the highest on your priority list, because if you're going to write a novel and you don't know how to go about doing that, where to start, I think this is a good place to start. The other book, and there's actually two that I want to talk about, but the first one I think is an essential writing tool. It's not necessarily a book that you read back to front. This is The Emotion Thesaurus, a writer's guide to character expression by Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi. So this is essentially a tool that you will use in your editing process. And I specifically want to say in your editing process, not as you're writing the first draft. And this just goes over literally all of the emotions that a character can have and how to better describe them, both from an internal POV perspective, but also how it might look like from outside, from another character's point of view, and things like that. Because you want to really avoid saying things like, the character was sad or the character was angry. You want to be more specific and vivid with the imagery, with the words that you create, and this helps so much with that. Say your character is embarrassed about something in a specific scene. It goes over physical signs and behaviors of being embarrassed. For example, a flush that creeps across the cheeks, visible sweating, ears that turn red. There's a long list. And then there are internal sensations that this character might be feeling, such as lightheadedness, or excessive swallowing, or a tightening chest. So these are all things that you could use to really elevate your writing. And there's even more things in here, but I'm not going to go over it. I think this is essential. It is essential for me in any case. And then this is a part of a bigger series, and these authors have made a few books, similar books. Another one I have is The Conflict Thesaurus, a writer's guide to obstacles, adversaries, and inner struggles. So this is all about sort of the character motivations and the character struggles that you might write about, and how to describe them, how to resolve them, and what kind of issues you might have with everything. So I'll give you an example. Character is being given an opportunity to cheat, so how will they react in this situation? For example, the character is given a fake ID by a friend. What kind of complications can come around with that? What kind of disastrous results can there be based on that? Resulting emotions, possible internal struggles that your character might be feeling regarding this. This one I would say more in the outlining/drafting phase as well, whereas this one I would definitely only recommend in the editing process. Next up, we have The Anatomy of Story by John Truby, 22 Steps to Becoming a Master Storyteller. I really like this one, and this one actually goes a little bit against the 3-act structure and the principles that, for example, Save the Cat, the book I mentioned first, recommends. This focuses more on the sort of natural course of the story and letting the character and the story dictate where the book is going, rather than you as the author or a external rule set like, you know, the 3-act structure dictating that. So it really focuses on sort of the natural flow of a story. But I do think that for a beginning writer, this might be a little more difficult to grasp and to understand. That's why I really like the 3-act structure, because it is kind of strict, especially with the story beats, but it just works. It's a formula that works every single time. And it's a lot easier to implement, especially for someone who maybe is a first-time writer, or, you know, it's one of their first books, and you can't really go wrong with that. Whereas the principles in this, though I think are very important, I think are maybe a little more advanced. So maybe if it's not your first book, then I think you can go with some of the advice in here. But I still think it's one of the best books on writing craft that I've read, and so for that reason I would definitely recommend giving this a try. Next, I have The Emotional Craft of Fiction by Donald Maass, How to Write the Story Beneath the Surface. So this book focuses more on how to evoke emotions in the reader, how to show your characters' emotions and your characters' inner struggles, rather than focusing too much on, for example, an external plot of the story. Because really, stories, though, oftentimes they will have an external plot, like some external goals that the character must go, you know, like from point A to point B, or the character must achieve this by the end of the book. While that's important, usually what's more important in any given story is the character struggle, the character motivation, and the journey that the character goes on in discovering themselves. And this book kind of focuses on that and teaches you how to evoke these emotions through your writing. So I really like this as well. Next up, I have to mention this book. This is On Writing by Stephen King. This is a 2-part writing craft book. 1 part is autobiography by Stephen King. So the first half of this book is literally just him talking about his journey as a writer and how he got from not writing a single book to writing a book and then getting a million rejections to publishing his first book, and how his sort of writing process looked like at the time of writing this book. And then the second half of this book is all the writing advice that he has for aspiring authors. And this is more on the inspirational side, I would say. So it's not like rules necessarily for how to write a book, but I think it's definitely essential for any wannabe writer out there, or even someone who has already written a couple of books. I just think every once in a while it's nice to read something that inspires you and motivates you. And obviously it's Stephen King, he's written a million books. That might be an exaggeration, but it definitely feels like it. So if there's anyone who has some good advice on how to be a successful author, it's Stephen King. So I would listen to what he has to say. Next is one of the most recent writing craft books I've read, and that is called Take Off Your Pants by Libby Hawker. Outline your books for faster, better writing. So this is a book that focuses on outlining your draft. So if you are a pantser, which means that you just discover you write your book and you go in to that blank page without having any idea of what you're going to write, that's great. There are people out there who do that, but in my personal experience, that is neither the best nor the fastest way to write a book. I'm definitely more on the planter side, which is a combination of a planner and the pantser. And I definitely outline. I outline, but I don't outline in super detail, so that I still have that sense of discovery and fun, you know, discovering my own story while I actually write the draft. But I have enough of an outline that I know where the story is going, so I don't get lost along the way or just waste time, essentially. And I think this is a great little book that kind of teaches you how to outline and how to go about writing an outline that it isn't too scary. Okay, so if you're scared of trying to write an outline before you start writing your book, then I think you can get away with reading a little book like this that I honestly think will help you write better and faster, at least. And in a similar vein, I have another tiny book. This is probably the smallest book that I'm going to show you in this video. And this is Romancing the Beat. This is Story Structure for Romance Novels by Gwen Hayes. So this, as the title suggests, is specifically on how to write romance, but not just a romance novel, any romance subplot or plot that you might have in a book. This goes over all of the beats that you need to make that romance really satisfying and really tug at your reader's heartstrings. I have used this to plot out one of my romance books, and I think this was invaluable in that plotting process, and it's so quick and easy to read, and it gives you examples, of course, on how to do it, and it's very fast. If you're going to write a romance book, or again, just any kind of romance subplot in your story, then I would definitely recommend this one. Then I have 3 books that are more focused on editing. So I'm gonna first tell you about Self-Editing for Fiction Writers, How to Edit Yourself into Print by Rennie Brown and Dave King. So these are 2 editors that have written a book on how to better self-edit your own book. They focus more on editing for traditional publishing, but it doesn't matter. Good editing is good editing. You need good editing no matter how you're going to publish your book. And I think this is a really, really good resource. It goes over a lot of examples of common mistakes that readers make in their prose and how to fix them. How to shorten scenes, how to make things snappier and faster and not repeat yourself too much in your writing. And it gives a lot of specific examples. So I think this is very good if you're in that self-editing phase. I would recommend reading this first, just to at least have an idea for what to look for when you start editing. And on a similar vein, I have The Artful Edit on the Practice of Editing Yourself by Susan Bell. And this is honestly very similar to the last one I showed. It just goes over some of the same things and some new things on how to best edit your own work. So this is also, again, for that self-editing phase that you will have to go through. I wouldn't say you need both of these. Pick one or the other, whichever floats your boat more. I think they kind of go over the same things. So, but I couldn't choose which one was better, so it's your choice. And then I have The First 5 Pages, A Writer's Guide to Staying Out of the Rejection Pile by Noah Lukeman. So again, this focuses on how you write those first 5 pages and how you edit those first 5 pages. Specifically, if you're going for traditional publishing and you're planning on querying agents, this kind of focuses on, really hooking an agent in those first 5 pages that they keep reading your manuscript. However, the things that he talks about in here just work generally for how you can open your book to make sure you hook your reader. So regardless if the reader is an agent or an editor or just a normal reader, the advice in here works really, really well. And it also gives you examples of cliches to avoid in your book's opening. For example, the character waking up and looking in the mirror. That's such a cliche, and it talks about a lot more of those. Yeah, this one is especially nice, a nice one that I would recommend. Next up, I have 7-Figure Fiction, How to Use Universal Fantasy to Sell Your Books to Anyone by T. Taylor. So T. Taylor is a self-published author who sells a ton of books, being an indie author on Amazon, and they wrote a book on how to use something called Universal Fantasy. So it's kind of a strange concept to try to explain. I think the book does a much better job at explaining it, but it basically gives you examples of why some of the most successful stories, both in books and in film and just media in general, have been so successful, what they do right, and how you can implement some of those secrets into your own stories. It gives you a lot of examples and tips on recognizing that universal fantasy of sort of your perfect reader for your book and what they might want from a story like yours, and then how to obviously apply those principles into your story so that you give that reader exactly what they want, so that they can't put the book down, so that they end up loving the book, then review your book and talk about your book to everyone, and that increases your sales and whatnot. But again, it doesn't matter regardless of whether you want to be traditionally or self-published. I think it's just concepts that would help anyone, even if it's your first book and you don't know what to do with your story yet. This definitely is more, again, in the sort of outlining phase where you think up your story and think of the concepts and how to evoke certain things through your story and through the tools that you use in your story. And finally, the last book I'll mention in this video is Write, Publish, Repeat, The No Luck Required Guide to Self-Publishing Success by Sean Platt and Johnny B. truant. This book definitely focuses on self-publishing and how to make a career out of self-publishing by just writing a ton of books. So, you know, writing, editing, publishing that book, and then doing it again and doing it again and doing it again. Because as an indie author, you really want to have a lot of books out. That's kind of the key to success as an indie author. You just have to have a lot of books out. But this goes into a lot of strategies on how to write faster, how to write both to market, and also, again, talking about that sort of universal fantasy, how to write books that readers actually want to read, because that obviously then improves your sales and you can write more books, blah, blah, blah. So I do think if you're thinking of indie publishing your book, this is a good one to read. Though I will warn you, it is a bit wordy. I would say that it's definitely a lot longer than it needed to be. There's a lot of meandering done by these two authors. They're both successful self-published authors and they both have their own strategies and tips, and they go into a lot of details on how they've done this or that, but in my opinion, it's a little too much detail, but still the meat of the advice that they give is actually invaluable, and it definitely helped me understand some things. And I think, again, if you're new to the idea of self-publishing, at least, this should definitely help you in the right direction. These were all the physical books that I have that I wanted to show you guys. I did have more that I read on Kindle and things like that, but I think it's already too many books. So, and like I said at the beginning of the video, you don't need to read all of these books to write your first book or to be a better writer. I think it's just important to continue to grow as a writer and to learn new things and to try new things. And again, also some of these things are mainly just for inspiration or for that self-doubt in your head that you might not be doing the right thing. Sometimes reading something like this can really show you that no, actually, you have done the right thing or you're on the right track. And I think that alone can be helpful. So sometimes I read them just simply for motivation and inspiration. But personally, I've learned a lot from every single one of these books, so I would definitely recommend you giving them a try. Do let me know what are some of your favorite writing craft books. If some of these are your favorite, maybe let me know why. And if you have any new ones that I didn't mention in this video that you recommend to me or to other people watching this video, leave those in the comment section below as well. That was it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time in a new video. Bye!